Explore the history, relationships, expertise, and data that go into ensuring Stine growers get maximum yield potential. This is the Stine Seedcast. Here's your host, David Thompson.
Hello, and welcome to the Stine Seedcast. I'm your host, David Thompson, National Marketing and Sales Director for Stine Seed Company. We've got another great episode lined up with special guests, expert insights, and discussion on everything you need to know about maximizing yield potential. On today's episode, our special guest is the current Iowa FFA State President, Sam Martin. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, David. I'm glad to be on.
So Sam is originally from Imogene, Iowa, where he grew up on his family's row crop and cattle farm. Before becoming state president, Sam attended Shenandoah High School, and he was a member of the Davis-Rogers FFA chapter. In high school, Sam was also involved in 4-H, Student Council, National Honor Society, Fire Cadets, cross country, and basketball. As Iowa FFA president, Sam helps guide the state officer team as they work to represent the nearly 260 chapters across the state and organize the state's annual leadership conference. We look forward to learning about Sam's background in ag and all about FFA in this episode of the Stine Seedcast. So let's get started. So Sam, to get us started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Shenandoah, Iowa. So for those that don't know where Shenandoah is, southwest part of Iowa, Fremont County area, Fremont-Page County. Grew up on a row crop cattle operation. We've been always heavily involved with the farm. I've actually got younger siblings, 3 younger siblings that are involved with the farm and some cousins. So grew up there, went to high school there. Mom was actually my ag teacher. And then, yeah, so
nice.
If you can imagine how that went, I was her worst student, but unfortunately, I have a lot of respect for what she does now. But yeah, I grew up in a row crop cattle operation there. We started a custom ag business in 2019, so that's been expanding ever since I've actually left the farm some. And now, because now I'm at Iowa State, I'm a sophomore there studying agronomy and animal science, So
I was going to ask you how you got your start in FFA, but it sounds like maybe that was kind of a foregone conclusion with FFA and ag teacher in the house.
Yeah, so my mom actually taught for a couple years before us kids were born. Took about a 10-year break, and then when I was about 6th grade, she went back to teaching when all of us kids were back in school, and I, kind of was always around it, fell in love with it, and it was kind of a natural fit from there.
Yeah, sure. So what things did you do, because obviously you're in college now, but in high school, what were the things you were involved with within FFA there at the high school level?
Yeah, so a lot of local stuff. We, as a Davis-Rogers FFA chapter, we were very local-oriented, community-oriented, whether that be working with the local, Rotary Club, the Optimist Club, anything like that. We were involved in the school. We were actually the largest student organization in the school. FFA is a really big thing in Shenandoah. I think at the height when I was in there, we had 85 kids in the program, and for a small 2A school, that's a lot of kids in the program. So I was very involved with that. I served as an officer, helped with several committees, the fairs, did stuff with them. Was actually a district officer when I was in high school. So my junior and senior year, I served as the Southwest District Treasurer. So I was involved above the chapter level as well. But yeah, just a lot of everyday in and outs, developing my own SAE project. And that's where I really built my foundation to go further in the FFA, was there, the home chapter.
So yeah, start out the home chapter, and then, as you said, maybe a district role, and then advancing to the state level.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about, part of growing that. You have a great chapter there at home in Davis-Rogers. And it occurs to me there's an interesting thing, because even among a lot of these chapters, you have a lot of students who maybe don't have firsthand experience with the farm. And as you're trying to grow an organization like FFA, I think the natural progression is, farm kids go out for FFA. But I know that a lot of the work that FFA has done recently is to talk about, broadening that scope.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, how do you describe FFA to those students who maybe aren't familiar with, maybe what FFA is or does?
Yeah, so, and you bring up a good point there, David. I come from a rural community, Shenandoah is very rural, 4,500 people, and 80% of the kids in our, ag program and our FFA chapter actually did not come from, direct from a farm background. So you even see in those rural areas, you don't have, straight farm kid, that typical, kid that's been on the tractor since day one. That is not our demographic anymore. We are open to everyone. And that's because FFA doesn't just develop like the ag knowledge, it develops the career and technical skills that you need to succeed. I think we, especially in such a digital world and a world that has focused a lot on what you can learn, sometimes we lose the soft skills. And FFA is really good about teaching those soft skills. How do you talk to somebody? How do you get a job interview? How do you do those kind of things? And FFA provides that avenue. And it also provides a lot of spots for kids to grow, learn and make connections. That's a big thing, is FFA wants to make connections, with our community, with representatives in the ag industry. And FFA has progressed more and more to push that image of, hey, we're for everyone, No matter if you come from ag background, no matter if you don't, the only animal that you've ever dealt with is maybe a goldfish. Like, we are here for you. And there's a spot for you in FFA with one of our CDs, our LDs, just getting involved at a local level, We want you to be a part of this organization, and we're open to everyone. And it's really neat to see. And traveling the state the last year or so, or the last 2 years actually, I have seen that every ag program is different too, because they cater to that community. What does that community have? Like, living to serve is in our motto, and to live to serve, you got to know the people you're serving. So, how can we make each ag chapter successful, or FFA chapter successful, and how can we make sure it's attuned to the needs of the students in that area, in that school? So,
and to your point, I think what's interesting is, I had the opportunity to do some judging at the local level, and had a great conversation with someone who teaches FFA for the Des Moines public school system. Which Des Moines being the largest public school system in the state of Iowa. It was just interesting to me to hear about what agriculture or FFA is to that school district versus, let's say, Shenandoah or, other school districts. And the point being, there's a lot of ways that FFA can engage and interact with students, and I think that's fascinating. So you brought up, you traveled around the state, you've talked to a lot of folks, and kind of related to that, I guess, what do you talk about FFA to maybe, again, a non-ag audience, not even students, but as you interact with folks in their communities and try to describe what it is FFA is trying to do? How do you go about describing that to them?
Well, I think at first you need to put just makes a connection with your audience, right? Gauge that audience. And when we talk about FFA, talk about, okay, do you guys think of some organization throughout school or something that you gain some, soft skills, technical skills, career readiness skills, and most, hopefully everyone, especially if you're talking to audience that maybe not even as a high school level, that is like a business level. Okay, you can see that. You've made that connection. They have some organization that's that to them, and you can say, well, FFA is the largest student organization. We are here not just for the cows, sows, plows, that kind of education. We are here for those technical educations, and describing the things we do, what FFA members are, what projects they do. Agri-Science Fair we just had in Ames, and that Agri-Science Fair has so many different branches that aren't directly tied to ag that. That's our future biologists, that's our future neurologists, scientists. Those are those people. And you can see how that's beneficial, not just in the ag industry, but, the medical, whatever industry. So trying to make that connection. And FFA is such a place that anyone can grow, and whatever you put into it, you're going to get out of it. And then I don't want us to get away from ag as well. Like, we are an ag education organization. And I think it's sometimes scary to see people don't know where their food comes from, right? So for our chapter, we hosted a couple years, we hosted a group from inner city Chicago. They're anywhere from seventh graders to sophomores in high school. And they came from a very hands-on learning kind of school, and their teacher came from the southwest Iowa area. And they asked, can we go see what Iowa's like, right? And when I tell you, they had never been out of inner city Chicago. They didn't even think we had running plumbing. I'm going to be completely honest. They thought they had to bring a shovel to dig a hole to go to the bathroom, and never seen gravel, any of that. But we showed them cattle and okay, here's a planter, and how that works, and why do we do what we do in the ag industry, and being an advocate for the ag industry. We had students that were being advocates from our chapter that don't come from ag backgrounds, but because of their time in a classroom, learning about ag education, getting the skills they have, knowing how to talk to people, they are able to be an advocate for themselves and for what is all around them.
Well, yeah, and that's a great point. Depending on where you are in the United States, your view is different of the food chain and ag in general. I know for our part at Stine, we've had a great opportunity through mutual acquaintance to host FFA leaders from the state of Florida to come to Iowa. And that's always fascinating because, again, just talking about agriculture itself is different, regardless, depending on where you are. But then you're talking about a non-ag audience, a clearly non-ag audience. And I think it's great what you're doing there to educate the public on where their food comes from and how we care for the land. So I think that's fantastic. It occurs to me that, Sam, that you've progressed from, your earliest days in FFA and come up through, local leadership into district leadership and into state leadership. How has that, FFA experience changed for you going through those progressions from the local to now, kind of being the leader of it all here this past year?
I would say from the people that I've met, my view on what a true leader is really changed through that progression. When I first got into FFA, it was, and you get this, you're first in high school, it's very like competition oriented, like how do we win? How do we do this? What's that next achievement, right? When I got to the state level, by the time I got to the state level, I realized FFA is so much more about that service aspect. That's the really important piece to what FFA is, right? And my view on it is, and I was told this a long time ago by an officer that was older than me, as FFA members, we wear our own name on the front of our jackets, but more importantly, we wear our chapter name or for me, like it's the Iowa Association name on our backs. And that is because we serve, That name is more important. The name that you have on the back of your jacket is more important than the name on the front of the jacket. And I've really tried to push that as, traveling around the state, talking to FFA members, like, we're here to serve. That is what our goal is, community. When COVID came around and the schools shut down and whatnot, Governor Reynolds let FFA chapters keep operating because they were giving back to their communities so much. They were helping keep their local communities functioning, whether it be through food pantry donations, community gardens. So trying to emphasize that part of it is a big deal. And I think as a state officer, that comes with stresses that maybe not everyone sees. But at the end of the day, if we can make the experience of one member better, then we've done our job as state officers.
So you're talking about I'm sure there's challenges and opportunities with being state leadership. So I'm just curious, what do you wish someone had told you about being a state leader that you didn't know at the time?
How much time you stare at a computer screen, if I'm going to be honest. Not the most technology-driven person, but you see a lot of, like, especially when you're a high schooler, you see the state officers, whatnot. You see them on the big stage at Hilton Coliseum during convention. You see them at the conferences, right? They always bring this energy and fire and whatnot that it seems sometimes distant. Like, man, how did they do that? But now, as I've gotten into this role, like, they were just humans just like anybody else, right? And we've tried to, and I've tried to work with the officer team this year and whatnot, trying to show people that, we are humans. Like, we can just talk. Like, we can talk to you. We want to know about your interests and whatnot. And, that I wish somebody had told me more that it's, you're going to have your bad days. You're going to have your struggles. It's not always going to be great. You're going to have late nights, early mornings. The parts that aren't so glamorous are going to be the struggles, but in the end, it'll all make it all right. But yeah, I never knew how much you could do on a computer in one day until I was a state officer.
Well, and the thing that always fascinated me about that as well is, this is your first year at college, right?
Second, yeah.
Second
sophomore,
year.
Yep.
So you're in your first couple years of college and also assuming state leadership roles. Either one of those is a challenge in and of itself, and you're kind of doing both at the same time. So that's a lot of work. Now, you mentioned state conference. So when this episode airs, you'll be T-minus 1 week to state conference. So
yep.
To put listeners kind of in the framework, this is kind of 0 hour for you and your team. Talk about, because I've been there, seen it. It's a great event. For those who haven't experienced state conference, describe that a little bit. What goes on and what it means to you.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'll take the first part of that question. What goes on at state office or state conference, and I'm going to go from there. So state conference is like the culmination of the whole year kind of coming together for all of Iowa FFA. So this last couple months, we've done a lot of like sub-districts, district contests, kids competing, whether it be job interview, conduct of meetings, Parley Pro, all that. So that first half of like that Monday is a lot of like those competitions competing at the state level to figure that out, right? We want our members to be a part of that. We want them to compete. They want them to have fun. And then we recognize them on stage then when they win. So we have 4 general sessions, so 1 Monday night and then 3 Tuesday. And that's where we recognize our members, for all the hard work they put in. That's where we recognize sponsors too, like all they've done to contribute to the FFA mission and what we want to do as an organization. So we want to recognize all those supporters, all those members, and then we also elect a new team at that time. That's our last session. And state conference is like really putting FFA on display right there in the middle of the state, Ames area, and letting them see everything we do. We have 6,000 members, guests up there, so it's a big, big event. We have full access to a career and trade show that members can engage with different companies. A lot of them could be future employers if they stay in the ag industry, colleges, whatnot. So getting to see all that on display in one spot is pretty neat. And there's a lot that goes into it. I've been working to put together and again, thank you to all the state staff, state leadership conference staff of probably close to 50 people that work behind the scenes to try to get this to run, along with those that are like right on the front lines and the 9 officers and whatnot. So we're trying to highlight all that FFA does in 2 days. And it's a really, really fun event. We see a lot of great times, memories. And then for me personally, state convention is where some of my fondest memories are ever made. So I remember going when I was 8th grader. We were competing in Ag Impact, and that was the first time I'd ever been to Hilton Coliseum. Like a lot of these members, this is the first time they've been to Ames, Hilton Coliseum, whatnot. I remember walking in, and they were just starting the first general session, and they had a laser show going. They were shooting fire off the stage, and I was really like, man, what did I just walk into? Like, it was a really, really neat event. And then the progression of what state convention has meant through those years. So at first, I was like right on the outside, like, wow, man, I want to be part of this someday. And then all the way up until like last year, helping put it on with my teammates and getting to retire with them on stage. And, it's kind of a bittersweet moment. Like, a lot of good work's gone into it, but it's kind of heartbreaking at the same time it's all over. So state convention having a more personal meaning at that point as far as relationships and some of my best friends ever at that point. And then now here we are, and another year's come around. I've got about 2 weeks left in my FFA career, and state convention is almost here, and trying to just soak it in why it's still the season for it.
Well, and it's neat to have those memories. And I would say, having had the opportunity to attend state convention, I've told folks before, if you ever worry about our future and our next generation, just go to state FFA convention, general session. The energy, the enthusiasm for agriculture is so infectious and so exciting. It'll set your mind at ease. It's a great event, great group of people, and the work that you and your team and everybody puts into it pays off because it is fantastic for all those students. How many folks do you anticipate at state convention?
I mean, we're thinking north of 6,000 this year for sure. We'll be at state convention. I'm hoping we can hit the 6,500 mark. We'll see how things turn out. Registration is pretty much closed, but we have a few more trickle in all the time. And actually, we just hit over 19,000 members as an organization, so we keep growing that way as well. So we're hoping for over 6,500. We'll see. We want to pack the seats in Hilton.
That'd be awesome. I don't know if Hickory Park can hold that many kids.
Yeah, that's a staple for state convention. That's always full of Blue Jackets on those 2 days.
So you talked about crossing the threshold of 19,000 membership. Last year, we interviewed a couple of FFA instructors and talked a little bit about their path in the schools and with FFA. And one thing that was interesting was they talked about the growth in the program, not only growth within the school they were working with, but they also mentioned new chapters coming on. So, I mean, are you seeing continued growth in FFA?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot more interest in it, especially coming out of COVID. FFA being, one of the only the only student organization that was able to operate through COVID, and that service aspect people really latch on to. We're pushing with our All Ag Ed initiative that every student in the state of Iowa will have access to ag education by 2028, which will be the centennial celebration of FFA as an organization. This year alone, I think in Iowa, I believe it's 9 new chapters we've added and just over 1,000 members or so. So we celebrated 18,000 members last year. We're at 19,000 this year. Sorry to revert back to COVID again, but Iowa as a whole was one of only 10 states that grew in membership numbers through that COVID year. So I mean, that's a hats off to Iowa to keep pushing through, and I think it's a testament to our ag roots and the tenacity Iowans have that, we're going to continue to see growth. We're trying to push more for urban agriculture, urban schools. Waukee started a program just a few years ago that's really taken off with a new resource center there. We're pushing for places like Johnston. Des Moines has theirs. Ames has one now. We want those kids that are in those schools to have access to ag education and FFA as a whole, because it is important. And I think we'll continue to see growth over the next few years. I would not be surprised if we elapse 20,000 members next year, if not close to 21,000, because I know we do have another few FFA chapters that are looking to come on board again. And I don't know, there's about 320 some school districts, I believe, in the state of Iowa. And we're hoping that by 2028, all those kids 100% got access to some kind of ag education. Major hurdle we're going to have is finding ag teachers. So that is a big, big hurdle we have. And that's just not in Iowa. That's across the board. We had turnover. I think we got 70 positions open, or being transferred this year. And that's already teachers moving to a different spot or ag educators just leaving the profession altogether. We see a lot go to industry because industry's hurting for people as well. And, ag teachers usually make very, very good employees. They're used to working hard, being dedicated, and it takes a very special person to be an ag teacher. So we try to keep them in the profession best we can. And we've done that through, like at state convention, we have the state letter of intent signing to become an ag educator. We've got quite a few students, I believe over 20, going through the ag signing process this year that'll walk across stage. And, we always love to see that, but we want to just keep pushing pushing to have ag teachers. And again, being the son of an ag teacher, I know the struggles on the other side. I've heard them personally, but it's definitely an important profession for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the struggles probably with ag educators mirrors that of education in general, right? The trend and the challenges with that. So hopefully they can fill the need and continue the growth in FFA that you've seen over these past several years. So, looking at this, like I said, I think you said earlier, you've got a little bit of there's a little bit of reflective time here because you're coming to the end of your term. So what I would ask is, when you think about FFA in general, I mean, what are your fondest memories of the time you've spent here from, again, junior high age to where you are today? When you think about that, what's the things that stick out in your mind?
As a general statement, the thing that sticks out in my mind is never like winning a competition or anything like that. I have fond memories of doing something like that, but it's the people along the way. Like last year, for example, seeing my team retire, they had to walk away from the organization, move on to the next thing in life, which was good, and we're still close, but like it's kind of tugs at your heart, to see them go, and you're kind of staying, and you're trying to onboard a new team, and I don't know, it was really hard, but it's definitely something that they become your family, and that goes for pretty much everyone, they become your family. They mean so much to you at that point, but yeah, it'll be one of those memories would have to be definitely when I got elected state president last year, kind of getting dogpiled by my teammates. And, that's been pretty neat. Seeing my brother get elected to state office this last year was a lot of fun for me. And my sister's now coming up through the ranks has been a lot of fun from an older brother's standpoint of seeing them succeed as well. And definitely something I'm going to miss. So, when I all look back on it, I was pretty lucky. I was very, very lucky. had very supportive parents that helped me get me through this. Dad's been farming kind of by himself or just with my sisters, and he hasn't had us boys around this last year or two. So, allowing us to have that time to grow in this organization and to try to want to be more and explore and whatnot. And so I'm thankful for all that. So it's going to be bittersweet in 2 weeks when it's all over, but I definitely no regrets looking back.
Well, my guess is they won't lose your numbers, Sam.
Yeah.
Great leaders are in high demand no matter what. So I'm sure they'll be calling you and looking for some help from time to time.
I hope so.
So talking about today, so currently you're at Iowa State University, and you're majoring in
double majoring in agronomy animal science currently.
Okay. And so what's the short term for you look like? So you're in your second year at Iowa State, and like I said, you're going to be coming off the board here. And so short term, long term, what do you want to do?
So short term, as far as the next step is to get involved heavily at a college level. How can I help? Working as a past officer, I want to graduate with those 2 degrees, and then I want to return to the Southwest Iowa area. So, like I think I mentioned earlier, 2019, we started Martin Custom Ag down in the Shenandoah area. Started with anhydrous. Now we do vertical tillage, UAN, do a little harvesting and planting as well. So I want to get back there. I want to return home in the next 3 years or so. Want to get back there. Probably have to work off farm. Where that is, not for sure right now. I do have an internship with Balance Forward, and maybe something there. It's a cattle feeding and consultant company, so that would be the path I might want to go. But trying to keep my options open in that regard. Ultimate goal, though, is to end up in the Southwest Iowa area, in the rural community that I grew up in. That's where I would like to raise a family there. As far as long term goes, I think it's a good place. Rural America is a good place to get old in a way, and grow the family operation a lot. The farming has. My dad had me a tractor when I was 6 months old, and I never really got out of the tractor in a way, not in my heart at least. So that's where I want to end up at.
So, looking back on this, what would you tell your 13 or 14-year-old self about this journey you're about to be on?
That's a hard question. I would say, if I was to tell myself anything, humility goes a long ways, and that soak it all in. Don't take one conference, don't take one moment, don't take one car ride for granted, because you're gonna look back and it's all gonna be over. And the last 8 years or so of being an FFA, and I'll never have a blue jacket on again, and that's gonna kind of hit hard and be a reality. But that's that. So try to soak it in and stay humble all the way through it is the thing that I would tell 13 or 14-year-old me, and laugh. I guess when things get hard, just laugh. It's a good thing to do.
Well, Sam, Stine has been a proud supporter of Iowa FFA for a really long time, and it's through the efforts of folks like you, the organization remains as strong as it is.
Thank you.
So with that, just thanks for all your service you've done for Iowa FFA and for your local level and your state level, and certainly helping make the national organization stronger. We appreciate the effort, and wish you the best of luck next week with convention. Best of luck in your future endeavors, and just really enjoyed having you on the podcast today.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate it, and all the support Stine Seed has given FFA over the years.
Well, that's our time for today. I'd like to thank our guests and listeners for joining us on another episode of the Stine Seedcast. We'll be back again soon with more expert interviews and insights about all things Stine. And to never miss an episode, subscribe to the Stine Seedcast wherever podcasts are found.
Subscribe to the Stine Seedcast wherever podcasts are found. To learn more about Stine and its elite corn and soybean genetics, visit stineseed.com. Stine has yield.